The princess prayed every day for her country to be destroyed. Until the moment when enemy troops broke through the city gates. She knelt before the victors, just to get a job as a maid. After all, this was much happier than her previous miserable life as a princess. While other young maids were still envying the princess's gorgeous little dresses, she directly spoke of the hardships involved. First, that dress weighed at least 40 pounds. The tight corset worn underneath was also very painful, like 100 cows pressing down so you couldn't breathe. What's even more terrifying is having to put on a proper smile and act as if nothing is wrong, while your body is enduring tremendous torment. And this was what she experienced every day. As the royal family's only little princess, she once thought she could live very happily. But when she was 10 years old, her mother suddenly passed away. Her father, who should have grieved with her, immediately married a new queen. The stepmother brutally abused Sienna in the name of training. She was in so much pain she felt like dying. But the stepmother said this was necessary to become an elegant princess. After being beaten unconscious several times, she sought help from her father. But the scumbag father said, "Madam, you've done very well. Unqualified children should obediently accept corporal punishment." In such extreme despair, she began to wish for her family to disappear. After all, the familial love she craved had never appeared from the beginning. Heaven seemed to hear her prayers. On her 18th birthday, enemy forces captured the capital in just half a day. Led by Prince Rashid, known as the Bloody Prince, he mercilessly slaughtered Sienna's father and stepmother, then walked up to her imperiously. Sienna understood her life might not be happy, but she didn't want to die like this. So she knelt at Rashid's feet and begged, "Please spare my life. I'll do anything." But the man just muttered to himself, "Anything? Do you want to become my woman?" "No, I'm not pretty enough or elegant enough to be worthy of you. But my embroidery is first-rate, and the tea I brew has a lovely aroma. So wouldn't it be perfect to order me around as a maid?" The prince laughed after hearing this. "Interesting. Then, as you say, go to the palace and work as an apprentice maid." And so Sienna survived this hell. But what she didn't know was that, although Rashid had complained at the time that her face was as round and bland as bread, he was secretly thinking. He seemed to have picked up a cute little thing. So from then on every day, he would inquire about Sienna's situation through his night soul. Soul was also curious why you cared about her so much. Maybe it's because of guilt. After all, I trampled her country and caused her to lose her family. Soul couldn't help but think to himself, you've killed so many people before, when have you ever cared about such things? Your Highness, just be honest with me. After all, you've always been easily attracted to cute creatures. Just then, 3 harmless little animals suddenly appeared from the side. That's right, this handsome and brutal man known to the world as the Bloody Crown Prince is actually an unbearable animal pervert, no, an animal lover. Just then he suddenly spoke, "I see, so that's why I wanted to take extra care of her. I hope she can become an official maid and be assigned to a suitable place. Your Highness, you should also understand that without recognized abilities, one cannot become an official maid." "You're right, Soul. Then let's test her abilities and see if she's qualified to become an official maid." Meanwhile, Sienna was secretly delighted. She could make soft and fragrant bread just by moving her hands, make dirty clothes look brand new. Even the courtyard would become elegant and radiant. These were things she never dared imagine when wearing those heavy formal dresses before. How wonderful it would be to be a maid for life. But just then someone appeared blocking her path. Hey. Finding work for yourself again, huh? So eager to show off in front of the senior maids? After all, you're just a slave from a defeated country. You'll definitely never become an official maid in this lifetime. Faced with the redhead's endless chatter, Sienna thought to herself, what is she doing? There were 2 maids following behind, like the long fins hanging from the buttocks of a goldfish. She quickly realized, is this the legendary bullying of newcomers? Sienna smiled at her like a curious puppy. Just then a burly maid stood in front of her. "I'd say you've gone far enough. Stop causing trouble for no reason. If you dare target her again, I'll tell the senior maids everything you've done." Hearing this, the redhead instantly broke out in a cold sweat. But the next second she became aggressive again. "Fine, you 2 pitiful people with no background can support each other then. Since you like cleaning so much, I'll let you clean to your heart's content." Then she ran away at light speed. Looking at the bucket kicked over by the redhead, the burly maid berated her in frustration. "Don't just stand there stupidly being bullied. You need to learn to fight back." Sienna finally reacted, realizing they were actually bullying her just now. After all, she had been abused by her stepmother since childhood, so the redhead's tricks actually seemed somewhat cute in her eyes. Then the burly maid turned her head away shyly. "By the way, my name is Chochio." Then she told Sienna that the redhead indeed had good reason to be arrogant, since she was the daughter of a famous wealthy merchant in the empire. so even though she was someone who couldn't do any work, she could climb the ranks quickly with her connections and would eventually become an apprentice maid. Speaking of which, do you really have no connections at all? Being a foreigner but able to enter the palace as a maid, someone must have helped you. Sienna did have connections. And that person was none other than the Empire's crown prince. The reason was probably because after seeing her abandon her dignity as a princess and kowtow on the ground begging for mercy, he felt sorry for her or found her ridiculous. So after calming her emotions, Sienna smiled and said, "Yes. I don't have any at all." The next day, Chiuchiu was sighing over the food, no meat to eat today either. But Sienna's eyes were shining brightly. She didn't have to consider how to eat elegantly or think about what conversation to engage in. She could just open her stomach and eat freely. It was as blissful as being in heaven. But just then the redhead suddenly appeared. My, as expected of someone from a defeated country, even this garbage can be eaten so deliciously. Sienna suddenly realized that Little Red should be bullying her, but is this all there is? Logically speaking, there should be other more excessive methods. Thinking of this, she looked at the redhead with curiosity. Little did she know that this airhead look made the other person's whole body break out in goosebumps. Damn! Why isn't she following the script? She should be crying pitifully. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but scratch Sienna's disdainful expression. Oh ho ho, don't you have any other tricks? Practice more if you're so incompetent. Suddenly Chiuchiu on the side really couldn't stand it anymore. Know your limits. Are you addicted to bullying a quiet and well-behaved child? Hey, I didn't bother with you the last few times, but now you're getting cocky and interfering in our business? Don't think just because you're tall that you don't have to watch your attitude. I'm the boss here. Boss my ass, you only know how to bully Sienna who doesn't resist. Just then the door to the room was opened. The apprentice head maid Li Pu walked in and coldly said, "Are you fighting? I don't care if you pull hair or throw punches, but at least don't make a scene in front of me." Hearing this, the redhead immediately put on a fawning smile. "We understand, Lady Head Maid." Then Li Pu took out a letter and said, "A notice suddenly came from above saying that a tea party will be held in a few days. You apprentice maids are to serve the guests. Serving others requires strict adherence to etiquette and cannot allow any mistakes. Therefore, even among the official maids, only the best are selected." Excitedly, they all chattered. "May I ask what kind of guests are coming to the tea party? Is it elegant noble ladies? Or beautiful princesses from neighboring countries?" But the next second, Li Pu told them it was farm girls who supply fruit to the royal family. Because the fruits supplied in recent years have been very sweet, the royal family specially organized this tea party to praise them. Li Pu said, "Since you have no experience with tea ceremony, you will have class every morning before the tea party. Gather in the courtyard after waking up tomorrow." 10 minutes later, the redhead was angrily swinging a mop. "Why do I have to serve a bunch of lowly farm girls? But come to think of it, if they weren't farm girls, how would someone like you have a chance to fulfill your duties?" Sienna finally understood why the higher-ups would let apprentice maids serve them. Because the guests weren't nobles but working class, so there was no need to send official maids. The next day, Li Pu was training everyone in tea ceremony. Chiuchiu was so excited. "We're so lucky to have a chance to serve others so soon. I must do my best." However, things didn't go as planned. Chiuchiu kept making mistakes frequently. The redhead directly mocked her mercilessly. As expected, the musclehead is hopeless. She's never had tea before, so how would she know anything about black tea? Maybe at most she only knows about the beer that her minor father drinks. Then it was her turn to demonstrate a set of flowing movements that even Li Pu couldn't help but praise. After all, she had hired a famous etiquette teacher from the capital for tutoring before. At this moment, hearing other maids praise her for being so amazing and not looking like it was her first time learning tea ceremony, her vanity was greatly satisfied. "Haha, maybe I'm just naturally gifted. Hee, I won't always be just a little maid. I'm going to be the head maid in the future. I'll be serving Her Majesty the Empress." Little did she know that Sienna was analyzing her on the side. If it really was her first time learning tea ceremony, her performance was indeed not bad. But unfortunately, her level was still only that of an apprentice maid. In the past, those around Sienna were all carefully selected high-level maids. They would pour a perfect cup of tea with graceful movements surpassing any noble lady. Silently and smoothly without a sound. As a former princess, Sienna naturally also mastered this skill. But now she was no longer a princess, so she didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. When it was Sienna's turn to demonstrate, she deliberately showed some small flaws. First, making the water flow thin and long with movements slightly clumsy and awkward. In the evening, Sienna and Chiuchiu sat together sharing bread. She noticed that the usually optimistic and cheerful Chiuchiu seemed very strange today, remaining silent. Come to think of it, Chiuchiu was scolded the most during the tea ceremony class today. And Chiuchiu had always been the one receiving praise before. This was the first time Sienna saw her look so helpless. Sienna, I really envy you. Although I'm angry, what they said is true. I've never had any proper tea or manners. Everyone can probably see that I'm the worst maid. Sienna understood that after becoming a maid from beginning to end, the only one who helped her was Chocho. So she offered to help Chocho with special training every day before the tea party. After that, they were always the last two to leave the maid's kitchen. Sienna told Chocho, first you need to heat the teapot in cups. Then brew the right amount of tea and put in a spoonful of tea leaves. After pouring in the tea leaves, pour it out once and then steep it, then filter it and it's done. After hundreds of instructions and practice sessions, Chocho was finally able to do it well. During the practice, the two became increasingly close. This was also the first time Chocho opened up to Sienna. She said she came from a mining village. Her father was a miner with 13 children, so he had to work every day. She wanted to help support the family, so she came here to apply to be a maid. Sienna was touched. Chocho, you're such a good daughter. I'm not that good. Isn't it only natural to want my younger siblings to be able to eat meat? What about you? How did you end up here, Sienna? Sienna didn't want to mention her past as a princess, so she just said at the time the crown prince felt sorry for me losing my country, so he let me come here. Ah, the crown prince? You mean Crown Prince Rashid? That blood-soaked crown prince who's never lost a battle on the battlefield? You've actually met the crown prince? Oh, I want to meet him too. I heard that although he has a beautiful appearance, he's cruel and tyrannical inside. Is that true? It's true. All my family members died by his hand. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't know such a terrible thing happened. It's alright, I don't mind at all. Those so-called family members of mine only tortured me my whole life. So it's fine now, don't worry about it. After hearing this, Chocho was silent for a moment. Then her eyes welled up with tears. You say that to keep me from feeling sorry, don't you? Sienna, you're really kind. Too kind. From that moment on, Chocho's attitude towards Sienna completely changed. When the redhead still tried to cause trouble, she always stood up to shield Sienna, saying if she dared say another bad word about Sienna, she would stretch the redhead's mouth like cheese and tie it to a pillar. Not only that, she always brought Sienna delicious food. I'm already so tall, it should be you little shorty who eats. Eat quickly and grow taller so you won't be bullied by those people. Sienna was very happy. This was the first time she had eaten such delicious candy. The two chatted and laughed happily in a peaceful atmosphere. However, at this time Chocho was darkly thinking to herself, damn crown prince, he actually killed the family of such a kind child. He's completely a perverted murderer, pretending to be human. What a shame, I was so looking forward to meeting him before. Little did she know that Sienna saw all of this. She seemed to be able to hear Chocho's thoughts since it was super obvious. Although Sienna felt a bit sorry that the crown prince was hated by her, it felt really good to have someone on her side. Anyway, someone like him gets cursed 10 times a day at least. It's okay if I play dumb about this. Meanwhile, on the other side, Crown Prince Rashid received a letter from the Baroness. He couldn't help but sneeze several times. Oh my, is someone cursing me? Then he picked up a plate of Alperton apples and started eating. Sol was a bit puzzled. Your Highness, forgive my directness, but even if the apples taste delicious, no one has ever invited farm women into the palace to reward them. This is because I want to use this tea party to test Sienna's abilities. Then he opened the envelope and found that the Baroness of Alperton said she would attend the tea party with joy. And so Rashid began brewing his plan in his mind. On the day of the tea party, the maids who looked down on farmers actually started preparing seriously. Chocho told Sienna, I heard that the owner of the orchard, Baroness Alperton, is also coming. That's why the atmosphere is so lively. They not only have to welcome their first guests, but also want to perform well in front of the Baroness, who is a noble. The redhead was also dressed very gorgeously, with hair ornaments and makeup different from everyone else. Chocho couldn't help but comment, isn't this too exaggerated? Little did she know that Sienna was looking at the equally well-dressed Chocho and said, so you're also dressed up so beautifully to perform well in front of the Baroness? Chocho's face instantly turned bright red, this that. Because it's my first time receiving guests as a maid, I wanted to look pretty in others' eyes. It would be even better if I could serve well. Don't worry, Chocho. You'll definitely do great, after all you were taught by an excellent teacher. Hee, that's right, and I'm an excellent student too. So let's do our best together. When the clock struck the hour, the tea party began. As the main door opened and guests entered, the maids would greet them all together to welcome them. After the guests arrived, the maids standing in front would come out one by one to lead guests to their respective seats. But the redhead standing at the very front kept retreating backwards, clearly wanting to serve the Baroness. Then Sienna noticed that not just her but the whole party atmosphere felt strange. The maids responsible for serving were all acting like nobles, while the guests as the party's main characters were timid and shrinking back. because the maids thought the guests were farmers, working-class people easy to bully, so they were all ignoring them. The guests' carriages were still arriving one after another, and the last to appear was usually the highly anticipated star of the show. This splendid attire and extraordinary aura clearly belonged to the long-awaited Baroness Alperton. Everyone's eyes instantly lit up. Wow, she's so beautiful. The redhead hurriedly scurried over. My lady, welcome to the royal tea party. Then she used her eyes to tell those behind her, I'll take care of this lady. Anyone who dares come near her is asking for death. At this time, Sienna was also observing this noble lady. Suddenly their gazes happened to collide. That noble lady immediately gave her an affirming smile. For some reason, this made Sienna's heart suddenly start racing. Just then, the maids nearby suddenly whispered, another one has arrived. Even if she's not the Baroness, I don't want to serve someone so ugly. Hearing them say this, Sienna curiously looked over. It was a middle-aged lady with an somewhat ugly appearance, hunched back, leaning on a cane. Seeming to have heard the maid's unkind comments about her, she looked rather timid and shrinking. Seeing no one serving her, Sienna directly walked up. Welcome, my lady. Welcome to the palace. Seeing Sienna's sunny and gentle smile, the lady's heart seemed to settle down a bit. Sienna understood the most basic rule of a tea party was to not neglect any guest. Each table had 3 to 4 guests seated with dedicated maids to serve them. After all the guests were seated, the palace tea party officially began. Sienna brought desserts to the corresponding table. It was chocolate made with cocoa from Mount Cain, which would slowly melt in your mouth. The women were instantly excited. This is the chocolate eaten by the queen and princesses. Taking a bite and savoring it, their taste buds were instantly conquered by the delicacy, feeling like they were lying in soft, fragrant cotton candy. Just then Sienna suddenly noticed that the old lady from before had gotten it all over her mouth. Noticing Sienna's gaze, she instantly blushed red, embarrassed and wanting to flee. But Sienna didn't show any disgust at all. Instead, out of concern for her inconvenience, she held out a handkerchief with both hands. Just as Sienna was asking if she needed help wiping, she hurriedly said thank you, no need, and then turned away to wipe herself in a fluster. Witnessing this, the other girls were stunned for a moment before coming to their senses. Miss Maid, I'd like a handkerchief too. I'm so sorry, you usually serve ladies of taste and princesses. Serving us country bumpkins must make you feel quite flustered. Please don't say that. You are all very honorable guests to me. So please enjoy the tea party to your heart's content. Then Sienna enthusiastically poured them red tea, making the previously awkward atmosphere lively. Just then a girl asked, Miss Maid, that lady in the purple dress should be our Baroness, right? I'm sorry, we're not responsible for confirming identities. Don't you ladies know what the Baroness looks like? Actually, Baron Alperton just got married recently and the Baroness hasn't been to the farm yet, so we haven't seen what she looks like. I heard the Baron fell for her at first sight, so I was wondering how beautiful she must be. Looking at her now, she really is beautiful. Sienna also observed that person. She was glowing from head to toe, clearly having seriously studied noble etiquette. That should be Baroness Alperton. The redhead should serve her well. If someone like that gets angry, it could ruin the whole party. However, the clueless redhead was still smugly thinking to herself, it's understandable that everyone is staring at this table. After all, the person in front of me is incomparable to the other guests. After all, I'm the daughter of a diamond merchant. The person I serve should be like this, not those lowly village women. But the next second, she heard the noble lady in front of her speak, How long are you going to ignore me? Your arrogant greeting to me, your gaze appraising me, even bringing me dessert so clumsily, and now you can't even pour tea properly. How long do I have to tolerate this kind of disrespectful behavior? The redhead was terrified. She realized she had indeed been negligent, so she intended to pour tea for the lady again. But she was so nervous her whole hand was shaking uncontrollably. As a result, she actually spilled the tea. This was the most basic task. The palace maid's skills are so poor. A maid who can't do her job properly deserves punishment. Like being beaten all night or having her tongue cut out. This way she won't make mistakes again. What kind of punishment would you like? And just as the redhead was too scared to react, Sienna hurriedly stepped forward. I apologize, my lady. Our abilities are lacking, so we couldn't meet your expectations. But as a maid, I will help adjust your mood. All right, I understand. But if you can't satisfy me, the anger and punishment she deserves will have to be taken by you instead. Hearing this, Sienna respectfully replied, Of course, my lady. And it was at this moment that she suddenly recalled her past. At that time, her ill-intentioned stepmother smiled, Your Majesty, it's been so long since I've had the princess's tea. Even her father's eyes were like a beast eyeing its prey. Yes, Sienna, make us some tea. For Sienna at that time, not even the slightest mistake was allowed. It was a matter of life and death. So how could she possibly not do it well? After perfectly brewing the tea, she immediately introduced it. My lady, we have prepared Earl Grey tea from Mount Ingrid for this tea party. Please enjoy. If the strength is not to your liking, please let me know. After a set of smooth, flowing movements, even the picky woman from before nodded with a smile. But taste is subjective. Even if the tea leaves are good and brewed excellently, if it doesn't suit the lady's palate, it's still over. Fortunately, after taking a sip, the lady revealed an approving smile. Very good. Sienna was very happy. She really did it. And so the tense and exciting tea party finally came to a smooth end. As the ladies were leaving, they all smiled and said goodbye. Suddenly the ladies from Sienna's table came up. Thank you so much, Miss Maid. Thanks to you, we were able to enjoy the party at ease. At this moment, Sienna felt all her fatigue disappear. Suddenly Sienna noticed that the old lady standing in the back also seemed to want to say something. So she happily went up to her. My lady, is there something you'd like to say? Yes, to be honest, I hesitated for a long time. As you can see, my appearance isn't very pleasant. I've always been afraid of hearing some unkind comments in the palace. But until I met you, I realized all my worries were unnecessary. You're like a shining little sun, noticing all my needs. I will never forget today. Thank you for giving me such a memory. Miss Maid. Sienna knew that since ancient times as maids, they should not show their true emotions in front of guests. Maintaining utmost solemnity was considered virtuous. But now she was truly happy and found it very difficult to hide her feelings. Little did she know that this scene was being watched by the purple-dressed lady hiding to the side. She couldn't help but smile as well. Back in the maid's room, the redhead's two little followers suddenly came up shyly. Sienna, you were so amazing just now. That calm and composed look was really cool. Can you teach us? But these words were overheard by the redhead. She angrily stood up. Hey, are you too serious? Just because she's better at pouring tea, you're fawning over a slave from a defeated country? How ridiculous. Jenny, don't you know any shame? You were all so well behaved during the tea party, I thought you knew better. Because you made the Baroness angry, the party was almost ruined. It was Sienna who cleaned up your mess. Not only are you not apologizing, you're making a big fuss. What kind of team leader are you? This made the redhead furious. You bunch of bumpkins, just keep huddling together like that. Meanwhile, in the Crown Prince's palace, Sol standing at the door found that Baroness Alperton was walking over. My lady, you always come to His Highness's room like this. It really puts me in a difficult position. Oh my, your fierce look is so cute. Too bad my heart only belongs to His Highness the Crown Prince. Please give up on that idea. He's just someone with a good-looking exterior, but inside his head he only thinks about the soft paw pads of squirrels, that pervert. This angered her greatly. Sol hurriedly apologized. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I got too into character. It's fine, continue. I find your assessment of me quite interesting. I'm not angry at all. Then he strode into the room and started cuddling with his cute little pets. Sol thought to himself, looking at his master like this, he's quite like a Disney princess. It turned out the Crown Prince had used a magic stone more expensive than a mansion to disguise himself as a woman for half a day. This kind of stone can change a person's body for half a day. Then he took off the gorgeous formal dress and jumped into the bathtub. He started happily washing himself under Sol's gaze without any reservations. Your Highness, how were the results today? Did Miss Sienna meet your expectations? I think she did quite well, exceeding my expectations. She was still a princess a few months ago, so learning maid etiquette must not have been easy. Thinking of this, he recalled the details from earlier in the day. Sienna's arm position, how she held the teapot, her accessories, everything was so perfect, just like following the contents of an etiquette book. And she had a quality that couldn't be hidden by a maid's uniform. Thinking of this, Rashid smiled. I fully tested her abilities, so. 3 days later, Sienna, who was just about to rest, was suddenly called by the head maid. Sienna, Baroness Alperton is here to see you. She has something to say to you. And so Sienna knocked on that room's door. Actually, she was a bit nervous. During the tea party, I should have served her well. Why is she looking for me now? Did I make some mistake? Then she saw the Baroness with her back turned. Miss Maid, I'm very sorry for suddenly coming to find you. I must have startled you. But no matter what, I wanted to properly greet you this time. I am Magdalena. I wanted to properly greet Sienna, the maid who served me at the tea party. I brought some small gifts to convey my feelings. Sienna finally understood that this person was actually Baroness Alperton. She had jumped to conclusions and assumed that purple-dressed lady was the Baroness based on appearance. How embarrassing. Realizing this, she hurriedly apologized to her. No, Miss Maid, it was I who hid my identity. Actually, when I received the invitation to the royal tea party, the Baroness was very nervous. She had been living in seclusion due to her appearance. She was afraid of being pointed at and ridiculed, and also afraid of being mocked by the farmers. But soon she received another letter from the royal family. It said to please hide your identity when attending the tea party. The Baroness understood this was a good opportunity. That way no one would pay attention to her. That day she noticed that although Sienna was dressed simply and not made up, she had an undisguisable quality about her. So she was greatly inspired by Sienna. The day after the tea party ended, she started learning etiquette. That's why she wanted to come greet Sienna properly. At this moment she bowed slightly to Sienna. Thank you, Miss Maid. Sienna understood that no Baroness in the world would greet a mere maid like this. Although the Baroness hadn't mastered her balance well and her movements were a bit clumsy, Sienna could still feel her dazzling inner self. So Sienna simply accepted the lady's sentiments. With respect and joy. On the way back, Sienna shared the apples with the other maids. Everyone was so excited. After all, they worked hard every day but could only eat hard bread. The Baroness was like a goddess, bringing sweet and delicious apples. So she became the maid's eternal goddess. However, a new question lingered in Sienna's mind. Who was that noble lady? She had silver hair and purple eyes like the crown prince. She must be a princess of the royal family. Damn, coming to play tricks where the apprentice maids work, is this idiot friendless? Just then, the head maid's words interrupted her thoughts. Everyone listen up. From today on, Sienna will become an official maid, no longer an apprentice. Tomorrow at dawn you will go to Ruby Palace. You will serve Princess Eris there. The redhead trembled with anger. Even though Sienna came last and had humble origins, she became an official maid before her. Thinking of this, she ran out crying, wanting to find her father. That night, Sienna lay in bed recalling the events of the past few days. Suddenly Chioccio walked in. Sienna, you're not asleep yet, are you? This is a gift to commemorate you becoming an official maid. Because you'll be leaving soon, I rushed to buy it. I hope you like it. Chioccio knew all maids would dress themselves up, so she hoped Sienna wouldn't shortchange herself either. She specially asked the shopkeeper to pick the most expensive and prettiest one. Sienna suddenly realized that as an apprentice maid, the salary was very little, yet she bought such an expensive hair ornament for her. This was probably bought with Chioccio's emergency funds. Thinking of this, Sienna couldn't help but shed hot tears. She threw herself into Chioccio's arms, already sobbing uncontrollably. Chioccio, thank you. It's really beautiful, I love it. Silly girl, no need to say thank you. After all, we're good friends. Sienna, don't cry. Go back to sleep. What awaits you is a beautiful future. At this time in the maid's quarters, the head maid Lipu curiously asked, doesn't Princess Eris have her own personal maid? Why would they send Sienna? Another maid replied, I am her personal maid. You probably don't understand why I'd give up being a princess's personal maid to do menial work here. But only those who have experienced it can understand that doing menial work is much better than serving her. At least in this empire. There's absolutely no one who can tolerate that demon. The demon princess known to all is actually a lovable baby who likes to be pampered. In the little maid's eyes. When other maids were still desperately trying to escape, she directly transformed the fallen princess into the most elegant princess in the empire, because only she would sincerely treat her like a 5-year-old child and care for her. It turned out that on this day Sienna was promoted to a formal maid, and was sent to serve at Princess Eris's palace. In the carriage, the personal maid told her that Princess Eris's birth mother was an exotic dancer whom the emperor fell in love with at first sight. So His Majesty gave her a palace with a garden, which is now the Ruby Palace where Princess Eris resides. But when Sienna arrived there, she found that this ghostly place was comparable to a haunted house. Even the inside was empty with no maids at all. Just then, the maid beside her suddenly screamed frantically. Then she fainted uncontrollably, and Sienna looked in the direction of her gaze. She saw a giant spider appear before her eyes. And the one holding the spider was none other than the legendary Princess Eris. What? Why don't you have any reaction? How boring. I apologize, Your Highness. If needed, I can display the reaction you desire. Then, under Eris's bewildered gaze, Sienna cleared her throat and began a heart-wrenching, ghostly wail. The scream lasted for a full 2.5 minutes. Sienna then bowed slightly. Your Highness, may I greet you now? Maid Sienna pays her respects. Princess Eris was very puzzled. Impossible. Why isn't anyone afraid of me looking like this? Facing a dirty palace and such an unsightly me, yet still able to show such a warm smile, it must be fake. So she coldly said, boring. Get out. I hate maids the most. Then she slammed the door shut. Just then, the fainted maid suddenly woke up. She excitedly grabbed Sienna's hand and said, I've always wanted to leave this terrible place. Unfortunately, there were no maids to serve, so I couldn't leave. But now, thank you so much for helping me escape. It's alright, but you need to tell me how to manage this place. It's not a big deal, just take care of the princess. Anyway, it's just you and that little demon here. The next second, not even a shadow was left in the castle. Sienna instantly collapsed. Damn, no one to teach me and the master hates me. I'm doomed. But since she was already here, Sienna decided to make the best of it. She immediately picked up a broom and planned to clean up first. After an afternoon of labor, this dirty place started to become clean. Just then, Princess Eris suddenly appeared. Hey maid, everything you're doing is useless. Little did she know that Sienna approached her like a little son, smiling. Princess, do you have any orders for me? There she goes again, really treating me like a princess. No one has ever treated me like that before. Stop pretending to be kind. You'll definitely run away at the first opportunity anyway. Meanwhile, in the Crown Prince's palace, Rashid was thinking while taking a bath. Although she assigned Sienna to the Ruby Palace, come to think of it, deep down she still wants to call Sienna to her own palace. Crown Prince Rashid gazed at the shimmering water surface, suddenly remembering how Sienna was so dazzling that day. That genuine sunny smile seemed to be able to heal everything. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but relax. The smiling face is really cute. Anyway, the Ruby Palace is close by. I hope I can see her soon. The little princess had never eaten a full meal since birth. Yet the maid had steak and wine every day. This operation directly broke the princess's budget, so she could only wolf down the unpalatable but nutritious vegetable salad. The little maid beside her laughed. The reverse psychology worked. This way the bad habit of picky eating will be cured. Next is the cleaning issue. Princess, let's take a happy bath together. I don't want to. I hate touching water. But if you don't wash, those bugs that like dirty things will grow on your body. The bugs will poop all over you in big mouthfuls. Quick, help me take a bath. And so, Princess Eris successfully lay in the bathtub. She found that the sponge didn't hurt on her body at all, and the foam didn't hurt her eyes. The rosemary also smelled good. Instead, her mood was unprecedentedly pleasant. Then, under Sienna's coercion and persuasion, she successfully brushed her teeth. And for the first time she dried her wet hair. Princess Eris discovered that since this annoying maid came, everything had changed. She even planted vibrant flowers on this barren land, and said she would make beautiful flower crowns for the princess when they bloomed. It turned out that on this day Sienna was promoted to a formal maid. She always treats me like a real princess. What do I need to do to make her show her true colors? Suddenly, she noticed Sienna's hairpin that had fallen on the ground. So she deliberately mocked the humming Sienna. What are you grinning about? It's really affecting others' mood. The previously smiling Sienna was stunned when she turned around, because the hairpin that Chocho had given her was now on Princess Eris's head. This was the most precious gift Sienna had ever owned in her life, so she immediately said, Princess, I'm sorry, but the hairpin you're wearing is mine. Please return it to me. But she heard the other say, this is my palace, so everything here is mine. Suddenly, Princess Eris noticed that the usually good-tempered Sienna was now extremely serious. But she still arrogantly shouted, if you want it back so badly, then come and get it. She thought Sienna definitely couldn't catch her. After all, no maid had been able to catch her all these years. But the next second she looked back and found that Sienna had caught up, her speed comparable to a small electric motor. Suddenly, Princess Eris found that she had nowhere to go. And Sienna was closing in step by step. Princess, it's wrong to play such a joke with other people's things. Please return it to me quickly. Princess Eris instantly felt as if she had fallen into an ice pit. She had said before that she would do her best to serve me as her master. But in the end it was just like other maids, all talk and no action. So while saying no, she threw the hairpin into the pool. Then she heard a splash and Sienna jumped into the pool. Actually, Eris hadn't always been this willful. When her mother left, there was a maid who hugged her and said she would take good care of her. Eris was so happy she could burst, feeling that the maid was as warm as her mother. But later that maid was caught. Eris then understood that she had been selling things from the Ruby Palace, seeing that Eris had no adults to protect her. Eris wanted to pretend nothing had happened. Even if she continued to steal things to sell, she would turn a blind eye. But in the afternoon, the maid packed her things and prepared to leave. She looked at Eris's bewildered eyes and small hands secretly clenching her clothes in anxiety. She still said those hurtful words, since I've been found out, I have nothing more to say. You're only worth this much. Otherwise, who would be willing to serve a useless thing like you? In the following period, new maids kept coming, but they always left with cold faces. The words they discussed without any restraint were something Eris would never forget in her life. Even if she has lowly blood, she shouldn't be such a waste, right? I didn't expect to get nothing good from working here. This princess is really garbage. Among those who left, Eris suddenly saw Sienna. Even she said, I'm also tired of serving the princess. Just then, Eris suddenly woke up from her bed with a start. She understood that everyone would leave her, and Sienna was no exception. She would definitely pack her bags in the middle of the night and leave without a word. So now she was really alone. Eris felt that rather than suffering deeper wounds later, it was better to be abandoned from the beginning. But just then someone suddenly pushed open the door. "Oh, princess, you're up so early today. Did you not sleep well? You can sleep a bit more. If you're too tired, you won't have an appetite, and it's not good for digestion." Eris suddenly felt a sourness in her throat, unable to say a word. Even though she had done such an awful thing, Sienna hadn't left her and was still as gentle as yesterday. Thinking of this, she hugged Sienna tightly. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I know I'm really hateful. You can scold me or hit me, just please forgive me. Princess, you're not hateful at all. Although yesterday's incident hurt me and I swam a lap in the water but couldn't find it back, I know that children sometimes do foolish things. And princess, you apologized to me so sincerely, so it's even more alright now. Woo-woo, I've thought it through now. There's a lot to do in the Ruby Palace, but you're the only maid and I'm a useless royal. I'll help you from now on. I'll help you clean and do laundry and I won't be picky about food anymore. I'll share all the delicious food with you. I'll be a good child, so Sienna, can you stay here forever?" Sienna was a bit touched. The princess is really cute. She's a very stubborn but unable to be honest, crybaby, pitiful and cute little girl. "Of course, princess. Because I am Princess Eris's maid." After that, Eris no longer played nasty pranks. She would learn to water the flower beds under Sienna's guidance. Even her small frame would try hard to carry big pieces of wood, just to help Sienna with cleaning. However, for children, there are more important things to do than cleaning and washing, and that is learning. So Sienna went to apply for paper and pens, intending to personally teach the princess. Little did she know that the people at the royal library would say, "It's not the first or second time that maids from the Ruby Palace have come to take high-grade supplies to sell under the pretext of the princess. If you really need supplies, then bring a confirmation letter from other royals." This left Sienna devastated. After all, no one could write such a confirmation letter for her. Just then Eris suddenly spoke up. "Well, it's not like there's no way. How about I talk to my brother, the Crown Prince?" And so Sienna sent a letter to the Crown Prince with high hopes. Who knew that before even a few minutes had passed, Crown Prince Rashid appeared like a sunny and cheerful big boy. "Brother, what are you doing here? You could have just sent someone with the confirmation letter. Why come in person? You're not trying to steal my Sienna, are you? When my dear sister needs help, of course I come to see for myself. And since there's a guest, shouldn't you pour some tea for your brother?" Sienna felt a bit awkward as the Ruby Palace had no tea leaves to serve guests. "Hee, don't worry. I happen to have brought some Darjeeling tea from Mount Osti. This will do, right?" And so Sienna began to serve tea. But to her dismay, Prince Rashid kept blinking his big eyes, his gaze never leaving her. "Not bad, Sienna's tea is very tasty. The flavor is still excellent. By the way, Eris, I was the one who had Sienna come to the palace as a maid, and I was the one who sent her to the Ruby Palace." What, you actually know my Sienna? "I'm telling you, you're not allowed to steal her away, no way." Rashid just smiled without answering and instead asked, "Eris, didn't you know I knew Sienna? Has she never mentioned me to you?" TCH, not even a little bit. "Sienna is mine, you little brat, better scram." Just then, Sol reminded Rashid, "Your Highness, it's time for the Royal Council meeting. You should go." Rashid sighed, then handed the confirmation letter to Eris. "Thank you, stupid brother. As a reward, what should I give you?" Rashid patted Sienna's shoulder and said, "I've had such excellent tea, so I don't need anything else. And thank you, Sienna, for making my day so good." What are you two doing?" "Stupid brother, get out quickly, don't casually touch other people's maids." Get out. After Rashid left, Sienna said, "I didn't expect the princess and the prince to have such a good relationship." Eris replied, "How is that possible? Who would want to have a good relationship with that creep who touches other people's maids?" "Sienna, you probably don't know, this is just a transaction. Brother gave me the confirmation letter, and I owe him a favor. We are all competitors for the throne. How could he help me for free? In this country, before a new prince ascends the throne, there will be countless changes. This means that we half-siblings will compete for the throne. I'm easy to bully with no backing and no mother. And brother so easily gave me a promise letter, without even asking for anything in return. He must look down on me." Sienna suddenly realized that indeed if they were really close, she wouldn't have neglected the princess like this from the beginning. And a princess of the kingdom can only truly be like a princess when she's close to the throne. So how can her princess be like a normal child, secretly discarding the green peppers she doesn't like to eat and staying up late to play when she wants to? In this world, all Sienna can do for the princess is. Meanwhile, in the Crown Prince's carriage, Sol asked, "Do you like Miss Sienna that much?" "Yes, did you see her round eyes? They're still as cute as a squirrel's. And did you notice? The Ruby Palace has become very clean. And Eris, she looks much healthier than before. Sol, didn't you notice? Eris has finally opened her heart to Sienna. Did you deliberately send Miss Sienna to the Ruby Palace? Yes, I know that girl Sienna. She's not bound by status or power in dealing with people and can easily get along with anyone. However, this point alone is not enough to capture Eris's heart. It turns out that before Eris was born, Rashid had a very good relationship with her birth mother. He would always lie on the queen's belly, feeling the movements of the adorable little life that was Eris. Back to the present, Rashid said, she was in sync with me before she was born, so we have the same interests. People I find cute, Eris will definitely find cute too. After all, Sienna is really cute, super cute. I really want to drink Sienna's tea again. Sol was a bit exasperated. This idiot has dragged the topic back to cuteness again. Hearing it 800 times a day is enough to make one's ears callous. In the following period, Rashid always said that Eris owed him a favor, so to give her a chance to repay it, he would reluctantly come to drink tea every day. Eris originally wanted to tell him to get lost, but seeing the matcha cupcakes he brought, she swallowed the swear words that were about to come out. Brother, Sienna's tea is the best, but just for one confirmation letter, you come to drink tea every day. I now feel it's a bit unfair, so you should also agree to one request from me. Sienna's hairpin fell into the lake. Help me find it. And so Rashid called 100 soldiers and drained all the water from the lake bottom to find Sienna's hairpin. In addition, he sent a whole carriage full of gifts, with everything one could eat, drink, and use. Sienna was on the verge of tears. After all, she was the only maid in the Ruby Palace, and moving so many things back would exhaust her. She painfully took a small cart and moved forward slowly at a speed of 5 centimeters per hour. Just then, Crown Prince Rashid appeared, smilingly helping her push the cart. Later, when Sienna mentioned this to Kyokiyu, she said with a sweat-soaked brow, at that time, I said the princess was looking for me and hurriedly ran away. Anyway, the crown prince seems to have mental problems, like a madman. Chiyochiyo then said, no, I think he's like a stalker. You better be careful. However, in the following period, Rashid seemed completely unaware and still happily ran to the Ruby Palace every day. He would ask for their opinions each time and bring various desserts to share. And even when asking Sienna to make tea for him, he was smiling and friendly, please Sienna. And in the process of getting along, Sienna gradually discovered that he was actually so kind to both the fallen princess and the lowly maid, so she couldn't help but think this guy was mentally normal, probably just waterlogged in the brain. Little did she know that this scene was being quietly monitored by a person in black clothes from afar. Then that person reported this to their master, fifth princess. The crown prince went to the Ruby Palace again, and he brought a lot of desserts that Princess Eris likes. Why does brother Rashid always go to the Ruby Palace? It's so annoying. Why does that girl get special treatment when her birth is so lowly? The fifth queen consort beside her said, try to understand. After all, she's a pitiful child. But mother, my status is higher, how can this be? Since that's the case, to let my good sister know her place. As her elder sister, I'll personally educate her. Just because of her snow-white golden hair. The little princess was seen as inauspicious from birth. But the merciless sister still doesn't intend to let her off. She called her to her own tea party, planning as usual, to humiliate this lowly sister like a beggar in front of all the servants. But to her surprise, the waste princess is now unexpectedly elegant unlike before. What's wrong, sister? You don't look well. It turned out that on this day, Eris received an invitation from the fifth princess to her tea party. Eris cursed angrily, does she think I don't know she wants to bully me again? Sienna was very curious beside her, princess, how does she bully you? She always picks on my clothes and behavior, and laughs asking if I'm qualified to be a princess. Don't worry, princess. Just go to the appointment with peace of mind. You still have me, don't you? Before the tea party, I'll prepare everything. First step, you can't drink before the host lets you drink tea. And when drinking tea, you can't make any sound. After taking a sip, you need to put the teacup down, and you can't make any sound at this time either. Then Eris completed the first practice under Sienna's guidance. Sienna quickly turned into a praise machine. That's really great, princess. It was perfect from start to finish. I've never seen such elegant movements. Princess, are you a genius? No, you're definitely a genius. That's amazing. Princess Eris, the etiquette genius. Seeing Princess Eris's delighted expression, Sienna couldn't help but smile. Although modesty is a virtue for royalty, only full confidence will prevent them from being ignored. And so, for the next few days they practiced from morning till night. Since the Ruby Palace had no gorgeous attire and no money, Sienna made a dress for the princess through the night. Eris only then realized why Sienna had been so haggard lately. It was all for her. And this dress was really beautiful, carrying Sienna's full love. Just then, Sienna looked at her tenderly, Princess, you're really beautiful, just like a rose fairy from mythology. Hearing these words, Eris suddenly felt a warm current flowing from the bottom of her heart to her whole body. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the road ahead wouldn't be so difficult. And so she took Sienna's hand and prepared to go to the tea party. At this moment, the fifth princess was sitting in the garden. She remembered the former heiress, wearing tattered clothes discarded by beggars, eating food like a wild dog from the slums. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. That ridiculous appearance, just thinking about it made her feel good. But just then she suddenly heard someone calling her from behind. "Thank you sincerely for inviting me to the party, Sister Ivik." "What's wrong, sister? You don't look well. Are you sick?" Sienna beside her was full of pride. Good, the princess didn't forget to smile. After all, in the palace, those who lose their smile are losers. The fifth princess beside her was so shocked she couldn't speak. This girl now really looks a bit like a princess. She used to look like a gorilla. Now she can't even find a flaw. What's going on? Is it just because a maid came that she changed so much? So the fifth princess's brain quickly turned, and she thought of a good way to embarrass heiress. "Sister, you've really changed a lot now. My teacup happens to be empty. Can you pour me some tea? And I don't want the maid to pour it. I want my dear sister to serve me." Sienna suddenly panicked a bit. Although heiress was familiar with the etiquette of being served, she hadn't taught her the etiquette of serving others. But to everyone's surprise, when heiress poured the tea, the water didn't splash out, and the angle was just right, just like the maids who serve the queen consorts. The fifth princess inwardly exclaimed that this was bad. Since she couldn't make heiress look foolish, she could only cause trouble herself. So just as heiress handed over the teacup, she suddenly knocked it over, pretending to be scalded by the tea. Then she immediately accused heiress first, shouting, "Heiress, what are you doing? I kindly invited you over, but you deliberately injured me. As your elder sister, I should punish you properly to let you know your mistake." Heiress looked at this and instinctively dodged. She understood that she was going to be beaten again. However, the expected pain didn't come. She opened her eyes and found Sienna standing in front of her, even warning the fifth princess to stop. The fifth princess was shocked. A mere little maid dared to stop her. But she heard Sienna say, "Please forgive my rudeness, but princess, I cannot watch you violate His Majesty's rules." It turns out that in this country the emperor once made a rule that without his permission, no one could punish the royalty, even if that person was also royalty. But the fifth princess understood that what Sienna said was just a formal rule. The emperor's descendants were treated differently according to their power. Therefore, even if they mercilessly trampled on the weak, they wouldn't suffer any consequences. But today this little maid openly cited the rules. If this matter spread, even as the fifth princess, she would be in deep trouble. So she withdrew her hand that was about to hit heiress, then smiled and said, "Although my sister has learned etiquette, it seems she hasn't educated her maid well. A mere maid daring to touch a royal's body deserves punishment." So the next moment, understanding her mistress's intention, the fifth princess's maid slapped Sienna in the face. The force was so great that Sienna, unable to withstand it, fell directly to the ground. But she still said respectfully, "Thank you for your education, princess." Hearing this, the fifth princess laughed triumphantly. And heiress, who witnessed all this, couldn't help but tremble all over. Afterwards, the two left this place in a sorry state. The fifth princess was still laughing behind them. "If you don't want to be invited again, then behave yourself, little waste heiress." On the way back it was already dusk. Heiress asked, "Why did you do that just now?" Sienna looked puzzled. "What do you mean, princess?" Heiress felt a bit sour in her heart. She knew that if Sienna hadn't stepped forward, she would have been the one beaten. Sienna knew this. Yet she still recklessly shielded her. She wanted to protect the powerless me. Thinking of this, her eyes became moist, so she quickly turned her face away and said, "No, nothing. Let me treat your wound first." 10 minutes later, Sienna winced as the cotton swab touched her face. She understood that her little princess probably hadn't treated others before, so her technique was a bit rough. But she was still very patient in teaching heiress how to treat wounds. Suddenly, Sienna noticed that heiress beside her was already crying uncontrollably. So she spoke up, "Princess, are you very angry about today's incident? Then do you want to have the power to take revenge? Even if it's a path of unscrupulous means and methods, a very painful path." "I do. It's okay, no matter how great the price, I will complete it." "Then, princess, I'll help you. I know very well how to do it." The empire's crown prince fell in love with a lowly little maid. But she thought he was mentally ill. After all, the crown prince, being a cold-blooded killing machine, now turned into a clingy big dog in front of a mere servant. This made Sienna unable to think he was normal. So the crown prince could only learn about Sienna's situation through his subordinates. But today he learned that the girl he held dear had been slapped by the fifth princess. Upon learning this, the crown prince immediately wanted to avenge Sienna. But Soul beside him stopped her. "Your Highness, I think you understand the pros and cons better than I do. Miss Sienna's master is Princess Heiress, who is a competitor for the throne like the fifth princess. If your highness intervenes with the fifth princess just because a maid was bullied, Miss Sienna is very likely to become a sacrifice in the royal power struggle. Meanwhile, on the other side, Princess Eris also planned to enter the power struggle for Sienna. And Sienna, being a former princess, naturally knew better than anyone how to walk this path. So she asked, Princess, why do you think today's incident happened? Because she has a mother standing by her side, but I don't. You're very smart, Princess. In the current situation, if you want to be stronger than Princess Yvette, you need to have a powerful adult on your side. This is the fastest and most realistic way. That person must be someone who can influence royal power, but not a competitor for the throne. Someone who can fully support Princess Eris with strong power. If it's that person, it can definitely be done. The Empire's Empress Dowager, Godria. So, Princess, you need to make the Empress Dowager your person. Eris was completely stunned. How is that possible? We've never even met. No, Princess, we can create an opportunity. Sienna told her. Besides the current emperor, the Empress Dowager had another daughter, but she was poisoned to death before she was even 10 years old. Originally, someone wanted to poison the emperor, but the little princess accidentally drank that cup of tea. While mourning her daughter's death, the Empress Dowager also decided to use this as an opportunity to eliminate political enemies. She dealt with those who killed her daughter. She paved the way for her young son to gain power, ultimately helping him become emperor. But now she has distanced herself from the son she once treasured, and she herself has gradually been forgotten by royal power. Sienna understood that this was because the Empress Dowager still held memories of her daughter in her heart. For us, this is a good opportunity. If Eris can alleviate the Empress Dowager's longing, and establish some kind of connection with her, Princess, you will definitely be able to become strong. Time quickly came to the next day, and the Empress Dowager received a letter sent by Eris. Fortunately, she didn't throw it away or refuse it, but read it carefully. But the next second, with a cracking sound, the Empress Dowager coldly tore the letter into pieces. However, the next day, Eris's letter was sent over again. The Empress Dowager couldn't be bothered to deal with it and directly ordered her maid, throw it away. For the next few days, Eris would send a letter every day. However, what awaited her was always just 2 words, throw it away. However, although the scheme seemed to have failed, Sienna smiled and told Eris, even if rejected countless times, as long as it could cause a slight ripple in her heart, this plan could begin. 2.5 months later, the Empress Dowager finally looked at the letter in her maid's hand with less disgust. It was the first time she didn't have the maid throw the letter away. The Empress Dowager discovered that the seal on it was actually sweet peach flavored. She couldn't help but sigh, what a child. Then she noticed that unlike the childish exterior packaging, the handwriting inside was so elegant and graceful. What she didn't know was that this was the result of Princess Air's persistent practice for this very moment. It was a flowing script written just for her alone. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but sigh that this granddaughter wasn't such a useless child after all. Time quickly came to that afternoon. Ayres read the Empress Dowager's reply while cursing, my dearest, you are my spring flower, you are my autumn leaf. Damn, how cheesy is that? How could that old hag say such things? Sienna explained, this line is a quote from the poet Libram's poem. It's quite tasteful. And I'm truly grateful she's willing to write back to you now. Please don't be unreasonable anymore. Oh, it's so annoying. How long do I have to write these stupid letters? In her reply, she's just showing off. I just be a listener. Don't worry, princess. The opportunity is coming soon. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Empress Dowager asked her maid beside her. You used to stay in the Ruby Palace, right? Do you remember what Princess Ayres looks like? The maid told her that Princess Ayres had purple pupils very similar to His Majesty's. And if the little princess was still alive, she should be about the same age. So the next day, Ayres was invited to the Empress Dowager's palace. Under Sienna's guidance, her every word and action exuded the aura of royalty. I sincerely thank you for calling me here, grandmother. Sienna was startled by this contrast. Damn. She curses the old hag every night, but now she can be so devout. Then Ayres spoke, because I want to repay your invitation, I've prepared a small gift. It's tea made from locust flowers. I heard you like flowers and tea, so I made this flower tea myself. If you don't mind, would you accept it? The next second, the irritable princess transformed into a soft and adorable child. She didn't forget to blink her big, innocent eyes. That cute little pink face instantly reminded the Empress Dowager of her own daughter. So she slowly spoke, I see. You've prepared a very unique gift. Let's brew some tea with these leaves then. 10 minutes later, after tasting the tea Ayres brought, the picky Empress Dowager actually said sincerely, not bad. Thank you for your approval. I'm truly very happy that it suits your taste. The conversation that followed was just like in the letters. The Empress Dowager talked about her past glories, while Ayres agreed and praised her. Ayres' performance was almost perfect. She gently put down the teaspoon for stirring and lightly dabbed the corners of her mouth after drinking. This was what Sienna had taught her to practice over and over again for the past few days. When speaking, she needed to gently cover the corners of her mouth. She also needed to recite poems in a gentle tone to maintain an elegant posture. And all of this was for today for the person in front of her. Just then, Ayres spoke up, "Grandmother, every flower in your courtyard is so elegant and beautiful." The Empress Dowager smiled upon hearing this. "If you're curious about any flower, I can tell you about it." "Really? I'm so happy. Thank you so much." Seeing Ayres' adorable smile, the Empress Dowager's heart was slowly healed. She couldn't help but think, this is really a nice child. Suddenly, the Empress Dowager realized it was getting late, so she reminded Ayres, "You should go back now." "I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time, Grandmother. I really appreciate you inviting me here today." Seeing Ayres being so sensible, she couldn't help but think of her own daughter. Back then, although the little princess was always lonely, she often acted like a little adult, always remembering every task her mother had to do and reminding her not to waste time on herself. The Empress Dowager regretted that her daughter had never acted spoiled towards her, always smiling gently. And such a good child who sacrificed herself left this world due to others' poisoning. At this moment, she couldn't help but murmur while looking at Ayres. "Really, you're so much like that child." In the evening, Ayres lay alone on the bed, thinking back on everything that happened during the day. She told Sienna she felt a bit strange. She had thought the Empress Dowager would be a very cold person, but now it seemed different from what she had imagined. Little did she know that Sienna had another focus on today's events. She noticed that the corners of Ayres' mouth twitched from time to time, trying hard to pretend to be a good child interested in the Empress Dowager. This made her worry about a more important issue, guilt. So she asked, "Princess, do you feel guilty? Like you're deceiving her?" But unexpectedly, Ayres answered decisively, "No, not at all. When that person was with me, she didn't ask a single question about me. I'm a princess without a mother, abandoned. How could she be curious? What she wants to know is probably how beautiful I am, how well I understand etiquette. How much I look like and act like her daughter is the most important thing. If she had even a little understanding of me, she absolutely wouldn't have shown that kind of smile just now. So my only feeling towards that old hag is one. Dislike. Oh my damn old hag. By the way, Sienna. Did I do well today?" "Yes, Princess, you were really great." After hearing the response, Ayres directly pounced into Sienna's arms, hugging her tightly like a real child. However, Sienna's heart was extremely bitter. With her help, although it would allow Ayres to take her rightful position, it would also cause Ayres to lose herself. Although she knew it was a cruel plan, she could only use any means necessary. In the night garden courtyard, Crown Prince Rashid had been waiting for a long time. Noticing Sienna's arrival, he finally showed a long-absent smile. Sienna bowed to him and said, "Thank you for your help, Your Highness. Thanks to you, I achieved what I wanted." It turned out that back then Sienna had secretly gone to find Rashid. She hoped to learn about the Empress Dowager's deceased daughter, even if it was just some trivial details. And faced with her sincere words, Rashid couldn't refuse. Thus, through Rashid, Sienna learned that her deceased daughter liked locust flowers, liked white fabric fancy little dresses, liked those elegant poems by imperial poets, and liked to have afternoon tea with her mother. So Sienna applied these preferences to Ayres. All of this would evoke the Empress Dowager's deepest consciousness, enough to gain her sympathy. Just like that, Empress Dowager Godiria unwittingly fell in love with this fake daughter in the name of love. Back to the present, Sienna expressed her gratitude. "Thanks to you, I don't know how to repay you." But she heard Rashid say, "I don't need any other repayment. I want you to tell me, how did you choose the Empress Dowager among the many people in the palace?" Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. I'm not planning to do anything to you. I'm really just curious." Then Sienna told him that as a princess without power in the past, when thinking about how to survive, this was one of the plans she made. After collecting royal intelligence for Ayres, she learned about the Empress Dowager losing her little princess, so she thought of this plan. However, hearing this, Rashid was silent for a long time, which was rare for him. After a while, he asked Sienna, "I made you lose your country. Do you hate me?" "How could I? My family always abused me. In the past, I was always troubled about how to escape from their clutches. Rather than sadness, I'm really very happy now." Hearing this, Sienna was so surprised she couldn't speak. To say she didn't care about the person who killed her family, this kind of person is not simple. "Sienna, oh Sienna, you have such a cute face yet you also possess such a cruel side. What an interesting person." After Sienna returned to the Ruby Palace, she told Ayres that since the plan had succeeded, it was time to implement the next plan. Soon, the fifth princess received a letter from Ayres. Her entire face became distorted and she couldn't help but curse. Has that girl gone crazy? The next day, in the garden of Ruby Palace, Ayres smiled and curtsied. "Thank you for readily accepting my invitation to become the guest of my first tea party, Sister Yvette." Different from last time, the fifth imperial consort was also called over. The fifth princess was very displeased in her heart. She felt that Ayres should always maintain that shameful and laughable beggar-like appearance. So as soon as she sat down, she challenged, "Can you pour me some tea? This time I want to ask your maid to pour it." The fifth princess originally wanted to find fault with Sienna, but even after looking her up and down, she couldn't find any flaws. So she persistently looked at Sienna and continued, "What are you looking at me for? Are you glaring at me? Speaking of which, you're that maid from back then, right? You're glaring at me because you hold a grudge against me, right?" Sienna was obviously frightened. No, how could that be, princess? Oh, you still won't admit it? Fine, I'll teach you a good lesson this time, you maid. Give me the stick. You can't, sister. If you touch Sienna again this time, I absolutely won't forgive you. Ayres, what are you being so arrogant about? Do you dare to talk back to me like this because you have grandmother's support? I know you're trying to win her over. This news is spread throughout the palace. Do you think you can rely on the Empress Dowager because she's His Majesty's birth mother? How could our poor Ayres have such a cute idea? Since that's the case, let me tell you another interesting thing. The person you're relying on has no power at all, because His Majesty has long severed ties with the Empress Dowager. This rumor spread as soon as His Majesty ascended the throne. You actually don't know anything. My poor and foolish sister. Not only that, she doesn't have much time left now. You're still flattering her. You're really stupid to the extreme. However, just then, a person suddenly appeared behind them. Seeing this, the fifth princess's already small eyeballs were about to pop out in surprise, because she found that the person behind was actually the Imperial Empress Dowager. Little girl, were you just talking about me? Just because she was too ugly. She was treated like a dog that could be abused at will by her sister. Even the Empress Dowager who protected her was called a useless waste by her sister. Just because the Empress Dowager hadn't stepped out of the palace for nearly 10 years due to excessive thoughts of her daughter. The fifth princess was certain she had no possibility of backing Ayres. But the next second, the person in question appeared here. Little girl, am I the Empress Dowager that laughable? It turned out that just a few days ago, Ayres learned all the preferences of the Empress Dowager's deceased daughter, and applied these to her every word and action. Just like that, Empress Dowager Goderia unwittingly fell in love with this fake daughter in the name of love. Ayres took the opportunity to pitifully express that she would hold her first tea party in a few days and had invited fifth princess sister. She was very worried about making mistakes. After all, there were no adults in the palace who could teach her. It was then that the Empress Dowager realized this child didn't have an empress mother. She felt a bit touched in her heart. She had lost her daughter, and the little girl in front of her had lost her mother. Everything seemed so fitting. So the Empress Dowager took her small tender hand and said, "I'll help you." Back to the present, the Empress Dowager snatched the whip from the fifth princess's hand. "Little girl, are you going to hit this child's maid now? How did your mother raise you? Let me tell you what it means to brandish this thing. Lift up your skirt. Wait, I am His Majesty's bloodline. Even if you are the Empress Dowager, you need Father Emperor's permission to hit me. Are you threatening me with my son? Then go tell him. See how he reacts." The strong pressure made the fifth princess almost stand up straight. The arrogant air from earlier instantly vanished. So she could only stand silently in place, accepting the Empress Dowager's lashes over and over again. However, in her heart she was still expecting that when Mom came, she would definitely defend her. After all, Mom was currently favored by Father Emperor. Noticing this scene, Imperial Consort Wu immediately rushed over. The fifth princess smiled. Now this old hag would get it. But the next second, Imperial Consort Wu actually knelt down directly. "Empress Dowager, I'm truly grateful that you personally educate my inadequate child. Yvette, you should also express your gratitude quickly." The fifth princess was completely shocked. How could this be? Mother was a favored imperial consort. Everything must be because of that woman. And at the moment when their eyes met, Sienna actually showed a mocking smile. 10 minutes later, inside the Ruby Palace, Ayres lay comfortably on the bed. That was so satisfying. I didn't expect grandmother could help so much. However, after a burst of laughter, Ayres returned to calmness. She told Sienna, "Actually, I really want to ask the Empress Dowager why they let my mom die that day." It turned out that 5 years ago, although Ayres' mother was a noble imperial consort and was carrying a royal child, when she was about to give birth, no doctor came. She sought help from everyone, including the Empress Dowager, but the response she got was only silence. In desperation, she could only give birth to Ayres alone, and then closed her eyes forever. Therefore, Ayres always wanted to know why the Empress Dowager ignored her mother's plea for help. But she didn't ask because she understood that to make the Empress Dowager stand on her side, she must become a good child who wouldn't resist or question. Hearing this, Sienna couldn't help but stroke her cheek. Princess, I understand your pain. If you want to cry, just cry. At this moment, all the grievances and breakdowns burst forth. She lay in Sienna's arms, crying loudly. And Sienna was also thinking in her heart that her plan was indeed a bit cruel. It turned out that a month ago, in order to understand what happened in the palace, Sienna read a large number of history books and documents, and also learned about the past of Heir's mother, Rose. Rose had no noble status or reliable maternal family. She was merely a powerless dancer. Therefore, everyone said she had a lowly status and wasn't qualified to give birth to royalty. With nowhere else to turn, Rose sought help from the Empress Dowager. She thought that since the child in her belly was the Empress Dowager's granddaughter, she would surely help. But the Empress Dowager said she didn't want to get involved in anything related to her. So with no other choice, Rose could only give birth alone. She used all her strength to give birth to heirs, but her own body was ruined. Looking at the adorable baby brought by the maid, she could only helplessly shed 2 hot tears. Child, I'm sorry. Mom might not be able to continue protecting you. Sienna understood that the Empress Dowager had once contributed to her mother's death, yet she made her behave well in front of the Empress Dowager. She really owed the princess too much. But just then Heirs hugged her and asked, Sienna, what's the next step in the plan? Since we've started, we must squeeze all the value out of that old hag. A week later, the Empress Dowager murmured to herself, after that tea party, Heirs hasn't come to see me at all. Sure enough, she must think I'm laughable, just like that 5th princess girl. But at this moment, Sienna came to her palace. Your Highness, Princess Heirs has been poisoned. Learning this, the Empress Dowager immediately rushed to Ruby Palace to visit Heirs. Sienna told her that it was poison in the sweets someone sent to Heirs. Because it wasn't a lethal poison and wasn't taken for long, the doctor said she would recover soon. But Princess Heirs might be recovering slowly because her body was weak to begin with. Heirs also spoke weakly. Grandmother, I'm sorry. I didn't contact you because I was afraid you'd worry. These words instantly struck the softest part of the Empress Dowager's heart. Such a sensible and adorable granddaughter, yet she had just thought so poorly of her. She grabbed Heirs' small hand, already in tears. You silly child, why are you apologizing? It's all grandmother's fault. Grandmother didn't protect you well. Don't be afraid of worrying grandmother anymore, my good child. Grandmother will absolutely make you get better soon. Meanwhile, on the other side, the 5th princess also learned that Heirs was bedridden. Ha ha ha, she fell ill because of this? That girl is really useless. This is the consequence of brazenly defying me. She should understand now. But just then, a maid suddenly appeared here. Princess Yvette, this is a gift personally sent by the Empress Dowager. She also said, to my dearest family member Yvette, these are sweets that never spoil. They will return everything you've done exactly as it was. This contains the Empress Dowager's intentions. She said she hopes you'll eat every last bit. After this, the 5th princess and imperial consort Beauharnais, who sensed the imminent danger, disappeared forever from the history of the palace. From that day on, the Empress Dowager began to dote on Heirs excessively, sending her cream soup every day, as well as tea made from the empire's most precious ginseng, and earnestly persuading her with kind words, all just to get Heirs to take a sip. However, Heirs responded arrogantly to this, I'm already better. You don't need to come anymore. I'm very tired and need to rest. The Empress Dowager wasn't angry, but only said sympathetically, yes, you need to rest well. Grandmother will leave first and come again tomorrow morning. In the evening, Heirs took a sip of the tea sent by the Empress Dowager, and immediately spat it out because it was really too bitter. Sienna laughed, that's because there are a lot of herbs in it. And although it made you suffer a bit, this illness has turned your defeat into victory. Heirs coolly said, fine, I'll reluctantly drink it then. I'll make good use of that old hag, and when the time comes, I'll ask her properly why she didn't help my mom back then. Sienna, I'm really terrible, aren't I? Fawning over the indirect murderer of my mom. Sienna wiped away the tears from the corners of Heirs' eyes. No, princess, you're not terrible at all. In this deep palace where everyone fights to the death for even a tiny bit of power, it's absolutely impossible to survive on kindness and sincerity alone. Hearing this, Heirs suddenly threw herself into Sienna's arms. I understand. Thank you, Sienna. I only have you now. Please don't leave me, okay? 10 minutes later, Sienna came to the royal garden. She asked Crown Prince Rashid, thank you for your help. What should I give you as a reward? Rashid seemed a bit helpless. I've said it's fine. Looks like you really have to give me something, huh? Your Highness, I must repay you. And I think in this deep palace there's absolutely no help without asking for something in return, right? Well, what should I ask for? Then, would you like to come to my palace? The little maid just told a story, and it made the entire palace boil over. The crazy crown prince and the arrogant princess fought over her. Even the little prince, who originally only indulged in art, was willing to return to the secular world just to make Sienna look at him one more time. It turned out that on this day, Sienna decided to go to his palace to repay the crown prince. Heirs specifically instructed, if that guy does anything weird, come back and tell me immediately. I'll teach him a good lesson. Sienna smiled. Princess is so cute. How could there be anything weird? However, when she arrived at the crown prince's palace, Sienna discovered that as a maid she wasn't serving others, but was being served by others, moreover by maids of higher rank than herself. And just as she was embarrassedly curling her toes, Crown Prince Rashid finally appeared. He bowed to the girl in front of him like a gentleman. Miss Sienna, welcome to my palace. Your Highness, please get to the point. What did you call me here to do? Sienna, you're really impatient. Alright, I'll get straight to the point then. The only thing you need to do is just one thing, and that is to eat dessert with me. Saying this, he tried to feed a piece of potato into Sienna's mouth. Sienna thought this must be the task the Crown Prince wanted to entrust her with. So, not wanting to be difficult, Sienna straightforwardly accepted the Crown Prince's feeding. Seeing her eating so happily, the expression on the Crown Prince's face became increasingly radiant. How does it taste? Is it good? Very nice. It's not too sweet and suits my taste. It has a strong fruit aroma. Your Highness, the chef in your palace is really excellent. Oh my, I've received praise from Sienna? It seems my hard work in making this food was worthwhile. Hearing this, the food in Sienna's mouth was directly spat out. Damn. This was actually made by you. So she weakly asked the Crown Prince, why did you make it yourself? Because the time I spend with you, Sienna, always makes me very happy. Then the Crown Prince placed a small red bird on the table. He broke the cookies into pieces, and the little bird happily started eating. It was then that Sienna noticed that the cold-blooded and ruthless Crown Prince actually had such a warm side. Your Highness, it seems you really like animals. Yes, I do. I love small, cute children. Seeing them makes me feel very happy. Hearing him say this, Sienna suddenly remembered a story. A princess from the Winter Kingdom, though very beautiful, couldn't withstand the severe cold at all. When she could only stay motionless in a room with a fireplace. A little bird that felt sorry for the princess appeared. I want to cut off a piece of the sun to give to the princess, it said. Thanks to the piece of sun brought by the little bird, the princess could finally go beyond the beautiful world. Hearing this, the Crown Prince's whole body trembled for a moment, because he had heard this story before. When he was young, there was a little girl he had a crush on, and this story was told to him by that little girl. For so many years, Rashid had always kept this story in his heart. However, he couldn't remember what the little girl looked like at all. So Rashid took this story as his only clue. Back to the present, Rashid immediately asked Sienna, who told you this story? Sienna replied, this is just a fairy tale that circulated in my hometown. After hearing this, the glimmer of hope in Rashid's eyes instantly disappeared. He murmured, oh, I see. It seems Sienna is not the only person I'm looking for. If this is a widely circulated story, then his only clue is gone too. So he spoke, Sienna, I'm a bit tired. You can go back now. Sienna leaned against the palace gate, thinking about how the Crown Prince knew that story. That was actually a story she made up when she was little and had only told to one person. Just now, she made up an excuse because she was afraid of trouble. Sienna murmured to herself, it can't be. After that, time flew by quickly. To make Air's life better, Sienna found 2 new maids to serve together. They were good friends of Chiochio and should be trustworthy. However, Airs was full of disdain for this. After all, she only wanted Sienna. So she shook her head arrogantly, if I don't want them. They look exactly the same and it affects my mood. I can't tell who is who. Princess, I am Guagua. You're so beautiful and still study so diligently. You're really amazing. I am Pippi. You're so cute and still so healthy. You're really incredible. Sienna found that although Airs said she disliked them, faced with their constant praise, Airs was actually very happy inside. I'm not that perfect. You don't need to praise me so much. Just like that, Airs started to get along well with Guagua and Pippi. One day, Sienna and Chiochio met and chatted casually. Chiochio told her that she had been promoted to a formal maid. Maybe it was because she was outstanding at work and very strong. She was actually specifically named by Princess Grace, requesting her to serve in her palace. Then Chiochio said that the promotion exam for maids was about to start, and most importantly, there would be a pay raise. Sienna originally didn't want to participate. After all, she had only worked for half a year and lacked experience. But if she could get a pay raise, she could eat the things she wanted to eat with Chiochio. She could also buy beautiful and cute little gifts for her princess. So Sienna decided to take the exam. However, things didn't go as planned. Even though Sienna performed perfectly, she still failed. She had actually anticipated this result. After all, she had heard that starting from intermediate maids, they would look at one's background. If you had noble blood, you would be directly promoted. Otherwise you would most likely fail. Then Sienna returned to Ruby Palace. She found that Guaguar and Pippi hadn't been promoted either. Sienna knew they were capable and experienced, but they had also failed, probably because they were hunters' daughters. Understanding this, Ayres was furious. She wouldn't allow her people to be bullied, so she immediately wanted to go find the Empress Dowager. But Sienna stopped her because the results were already out, and if they bothered the Empress Dowager for such a small matter, it would surely cause problems. My princess, don't worry. There will always be opportunities. However, what Sienna didn't expect was that the opportunity would come so quickly. That day, a long-haired maid approached her. Are you Sienna? I heard you were eliminated in this exam. Your abilities are completely fine. So I have a suggestion. Why don't you agree to the Imperial Consort's request? If you can solve this matter, I'll make sure you're directly promoted to intermediate maid. Sienna knew that under the Empress there were 4 Imperial Consorts in total, but even compared to the Empress they were not lacking in any aspect. For such people to ask for her help, what could the matter be? Just then, a golden-haired young girl suddenly appeared. Are you Sienna? I'm very pleased to meet you. Sienna remembered she was Angelina, the youngest of the 4 Imperial Consorts. However, what Sienna hadn't expected was that Angelina looked so young, just like a child. Then Sienna performed a perfect curtsy to her. Oh my, no need to be so formal, Miss Sienna. You're indeed just as the rumors say. I've been very curious because I heard you're the maid serving Princess Ayres. You actually turned a neglected child into a perfect princess supported by the Empress Dowager. That's really impressive. Now come with me. From now on you must keep secret everything you're about to see.